Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having an all-time great season this year, and for some reason, saying that is controversial. Whether it be from the free throw merchant resentments or him versus Jokic MVP talks, there is a remarkable amount of negativity surrounding this guy, and basically none of it is for good reason. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander deserves his flowers for the season that he has had this year, and for one final time, I want to give him those flowers myself. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. I will be beating this drum for the final time for a good while. Yes, in case you were wondering, I am using this video as a way to advertise my deep dive, which was about free throw merchants and ethical hoopers. Obviously, it was heavily based around the conversation around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander this year. I'm going to touch on some of the points that I made in that video. However, if you would like to enjoy a more prolonged, extensive, deep look into what it even means to call someone a free throw merchant and so on, please check that video out. Worked really hard on it, and it's good. I think it's the best script that we've delivered since the Power Forwards video. But with that said, let's first just run down what some of SGA's numbers are this year, because I cannot emphasize enough how special they are, and I think we have entered this area of kind of being privileged to super well distributed box scores. And by that, I mean guys who put up near triple-double numbers. That has become more commonplace over time. And I think a big reason why people are not appreciating Shai's numbers as much is because they've gotten used to that sort of thing. But that's very much abnormal throughout the lens of most of NBA history. And these awards have not historically always gone to just the guy who can get the closest to or at a triple-double average. So 5 rebounds and 6 assists per game from Shai. It's not great, but he's a guard, so 5 is fine. And he's a score-first guard, so 6 assists per game is perfectly fine. But beyond that, he is averaging 32.8 points per game, just short of 33, while also averaging 1.7 steals and 1 block per game as a guard, which only a few players throughout history have even achieved. Like, I know Kobe did it once, Mike did it, Tracy McGrady, I think, did it while he was playing the small forward position, and he's also 6'8", so that's kind of a cheat code. Dwayne Wade is like the #1 shot blocking guard throughout history. There is also John Wall, very good shot blocking guard. But beyond that, 1 block per game, that's a very, very high average for a guard. Nearly 3 stocks, steals, and blocks in total. He did this on 52, 37, 90 shooting splits, making his true shooting percentage 63.9%, which is 6.3% above league average. So he is putting up the most points in the league, and he is doing it while being substantially more efficient than basically every other guard in basketball, and far more efficient than pretty much any other instance of this volume being as high as it is. Now, I did use relative true shooting percentage because it keeps it to what the league standard of that is, and I don't think he has the highest relative true shooting percentage for a season of this amount of point volume. Nevertheless, this has got to be the highest true shooting percentage from a guard, averaging 32 plus points. The only other one who could maybe have jumped that category that I may have missed, Steph averaged 32 in 2021, and in 2021 his true shooting percentage was 65.5%. Sheesh, Steph, what a ridiculous man. So yeah, Steph is slightly more efficient in his 32 point per game season. But if you're in conversations with Steph in terms of high volume scoring out of a guard and high efficiency, that's the right guy to be in conversations with. And Steph is kind of outlier in all of those numbers. But here we are, in SGA has a similar outlier while also getting the scoring volume he does while not shooting threes at half the volume that Steph did that year. These numbers are bonkers from SGA. And you want to know how many guards have averaged 32 plus points, 1.5 plus steals, and 1 plus blocks per game? It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Michael Jordan twice. That's the only class of player that he is, class of guard that he is in the same company with throughout league history, is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Now, what I will highlight about Mike is that he did this twice while averaging 36 points, 2 steals, and 1.6 blocks over these 2 years, which is fucking ridiculous. Mike's numbers do exceed Shai's, but Shai is in a class only paired with the two highest volume versions of Michael Jordan that we have ever seen. Shai is also having one of the greatest mid-range seasons the game has ever seen. He is shooting 49% on shorter mid-range from 10 to 16 feet, 54% on 16 feet to the three-point line, so his long two-pointers. And in the floater range, he is shooting 49%. All of these are basically in the elite category. Almost all of these are career highs. Actually, I got that flipped. His mid-range percentage from the short mid-range from 10 to 16 feet, which is 22% of his shots, is 55%, which is elite. And then he's at 42% on long twos, with those being 8% of the shots that he takes. At large, over 50% on mid-range shots while taking 30% of your shots from there, while averaging 32, makes him one of the greatest mid-range shooters ever. 1 out of every 3 of his buckets is basically going to be a mid-range jumper. And then he's also one of the greatest slashing guards. While his volume at the rim has decreased a little bit, he has gone from a career 26% of his shots at the rim to 21% of his shots at the rim. He is shooting a career high 75% at the basket. So he's the most prolific slashing guard in the league. He's shooting 75% at the rim as a guard, and he's getting to the rim and to the mid-range at will. Also, like Mike, SGA is taking a good amount of free throws paired with the volume of scoring that he brings to the table. Mike averaged 11.2 free throws, while SGA averaged 9 this year. Mike averaged 11.2 in his 2 years. The free throw rate, by comparison, for Mike, his free throw rate was 42.8%. SGA's is 41.4%. So slightly lower than Michael Jordan, being the only guard to put up those numbers, as we previously mentioned. To me, that reads as this is a non-issue, or it was an issue back then and no one called it out, and I'm going to lean towards the former on that one. I definitely think it's been dramatically overemphasized, overbrought up in these discussions about SGA, and it has overshadowed just how remarkable he has been. Of course, I recognize that the free throw merchant discussion is not strictly around volume. You know, Michael earned all of those calls. SGA's out here grifting. I think that's bullshit. But even if we want to be generous, and you would be ridiculous if you do not think this is true. So as generous as I'm willing to be, let's say half of all of the calls that SGA gets are complete bullshit, where he created the contact and orchestrated it in a way that was unfair to the defender. Of his 9 free throws, 4.5 of them are bullshit, and he does not get access to them. That's still 2 trips to the free throw line per game. That is 2 instances in 48 minutes of NBA action, 32 minutes or more, especially when the playoffs come around, of SGA, and you're going to focus on the 2 possessions that you didn't like, or like maybe the other 2 where he tried it and didn't get the call because that play looked kind of ugly. Like, to focus in so much on this one aspect that you do not like, the only way that you could come to that is if you are looking at this through a being a hater lens. I really don't know how you could do it otherwise, because to me, reading and focusing so much on these free throw attempts reads the exact same to me as how, you know, people talked about Nikola Jokic in his MVP years. Like, oh, what about his defense? Defense is a far more all-encompassing and important thing to me than free throw merchant shit, and even I thought that that was dumb. Like, it's not necessarily wrong to point out some of the weaknesses in a player's game, but when we're talking about all-time great players, when we're talking about some of the players who have ever played this game, their impact is so unbelievably large that to focus on the one thing that they don't impact super well, or the one thing that you just don't like about how they play, and act like that encapsulates them and denies them of any of the other greatness, it's ridiculous. In the games this year, 15 of them where SGA has taken 5 or less free throw attempts, he averages 30 points per game. He leads the league in scoring. If you would take away everyone's free throws, SGA is still the highest volume scorer in the entire NBA. He's still taking the most shots in the NBA, and he's not taking the most free throws. He's just making the most free throws because he's at 90% from the line. That's not Shai's fault that, they're more willing to hack Giannis than him. To me, I just think to focus so much on that when there's so much to love, the only way you can do that is if your goal is to hate. And for me, I just don't do that with all-time great players pretty much ever, unless it is actually very substantial and important to the conversation at hand. But if you think that free throw merchants is being a free throw merchant is why he can't be an MVP, to me that's ridiculous. But more importantly, to think that's why he can't be an all-time great or why he won't be a good postseason performer is more ridiculous because A, as I highlighted, he's objectively playing at an all-time great level, and B, he has also objectively played well in the playoffs when he has gone in the past. Against the Dallas Mavericks, who were a damn good defense during the playoffs last year, he still averaged 30 points per game because even though they cut him off from getting to the paint at will, he was still hitting mid-range shot after mid-range shot after mid-range shot after mid-range shot. You can't shut this guy down by taking away free throws. That's just not how it works. You don't stop being a good scorer because you don't get calls the same way you used to. The big thing, the people who guard him are going to treat him differently because of his whistle. That's the case for literally every star slashing guard in the history of this fucking game. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, James Harden, Dwayne Wade, Jerry fucking West, the logo, you're going to get a high volume of free throw attempts. It's just the way that it is. And you're going to get calls in a way that other players do not because calls are reputation based and always have been, and it's ridiculous to hold that against one player over anybody else because while there's some variance in that category, it's not extreme. But B, and again more importantly, Shai has shown himself to be a phone booth scorer constantly. When there is no space for Shai to operate in, he still figures it out because he is an all-time great difficult shot maker. And this is the thing that gets me to be like, you just aren't watching the games if you think he's this reliant on it. When defenses play him hard, when they play him aggressively, he responds just fucking fine. There's plenty of instances of that throughout the year. And if you think that teams are not playing difficult coverage against SGA, you're sorely mistaken. Even if they can't be as physical with him as they would like to be, even if there's a call or two per game that will go his way that would not go in the postseason, it does not change the fact that they're putting their best defender on Shai. It does not change the fact that they're regularly doubling Shai at pretty much any given opportunity. The way that this issue has been used to delegitimize his career, his ability, his talent is ridiculous. Beyond your personal feelings on the matter, just in terms of how we evaluate the guy as a basketball talent, it's ridiculous to look at it through this lens. Like I mentioned, to me, it's the same as the losers who focus so much on Jokic's defense specifically. But speaking of Jokic, the MVP race has really ramped up this vitriol. There is a very slight subsection of people who have just been overtly racist about this. I feel like that bars mentioning, even if I do not think that is the implication for an overwhelming amount of people who are against Shai winning MVP. It's fine to feel that way, but I've definitely seen enough fucking posts out there in my day that I feel the need to say something about that. Where it comes from for me is both Jokic and SGA are having all-time great seasons, and there is no real reason to hate on either of them for it. I hate seeing all-time great players get disrespected in the moment. I felt a way about that back when it was Nikola Jokic, like NBA fans being like, he's not an all-time great till he wins that title. And it's like, no, Nikola Jokic was the best player in the world, and he was capable of something like this the whole time. He just needed the pieces to fall in place. And the fact that you need to see the confirmation of the title to be willing to even entertain the conversation is ridiculous. More ridiculous shit. Mike was clearly going to be an all-time great by 1990. He had multiple MVPs. He had multiple scoring titles. He had a DPOY. He was a lock to be a Hall of Fame player and an all-time great player before he ever won a championship. Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Charles Barkley, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, just to name a few. All of these are guys who are all-time greats, and they don't have rings. Luka Doncic is an all-time great in the NBA right now. He has 5 All-NBA first-team selections. You don't think that guy's an all-time great because he hasn't gotten them to the promised land? It's very silly, and I guarantee you, if the Thunder are successful in their pursuit of a championship this year, people will be talking about Shai as though he is an all-time great when they could have been ahead of that conversation a long time ago because they felt the need to gatekeep it. And while I don't think Shai gets to be in like a top 20 conversation without a title to his name, top 100 player ever, top 50 player ever, I think he's already there. I think he's one of the best that I've ever laid my eyes on, and I've been covering this league for over a decade now, and I haven't seen some shit like this to the degree in which I'm seeing it from Shai ever. It's happened throughout history before my time, but since my time's been here, this guy is a wholly unique instance. He does not have the resume that a Jokic or Giannis do, but he's at worst the third best player in the NBA, and he can very much hang with them within reason. I just think it's insane to think Shai will crash and burn in the playoffs. He's simply too good. Please give him his flowers and stop this Skip Baylessification of NBA discourse where we have to focus so much of our energy and discussion around the negatives of his game. Give him his flowers. He fucking deserves it. And it always saddens me when we get to this stage in the year where someone's doing something remarkable and we got to talk about all the reasons why it sucks. If you want to talk about a negativity problem in the NBA, yes, the media leads that conversation. But so long as we're going to talk about great players like this just because we want someone else to win an award or because we find 1 or 2, 3, tops 4 things they do per game annoying, then why are we even doing this? Because we're not having anything resembling objective or real conversations again. We are just leading with our emotions. You know, not to quote someone who's going bankrupt or anything, but facts don't care about your feelings. And the fact of the matter is Shai is having an all-time season. And this isn't a fact, but I'm very confident in it. I'll happily tell you if I was wrong. I think SGA is going to have an all-time playoff run this year too. And I won't have to stand up for him too much once that comes around. Like I no longer have to stand up for Nikola Jokic in the way that I used to. Yes, this was also just to promote the deep dive, so please check that out. Puritanism is a useless ideology that wastes everybody's time. It's not helpful. No one is pure. Adding ethics to how you get points is really ridiculous. And the deep dive dives into all of that. So I'd appreciate it if you checked it out. And I do want to highlight this at the end, especially if you're someone who watches my content a lot. Repeat playoff coverage. There's going to be playoff coverage in terms of recap videos for every single playoff game, hopefully over here. And then I'm going to be doing immediate reactions over on my Little Rusty Buckets channel. So go check that one out if you haven't yet. But with that said, that is the end of this video. Shout out to Nick for editing, and goodbye.